Kevin's experience was different from mine. For me, that evening was nothing more than feeling extremely peaceful. Like, because of all the hesitations I had had going into this, I thought I might be jangled. But all I had out of that evening was a sense of incredible peace. And then when we got to the March 13th meeting, when we met with the people from when the Full Gospel Businessmen people brought in all these Pentecostal pastors and they prayed with us for the gift of tongues, everyone else in that room that night received the gift of tongues except me. In fact, it was because of distraction, mostly. One of the women, Bert Gezzy's wife, was the first. She started to sing in tongues, which I had never heard in my life. She sang very loud and very beautifully. And I was sort of staring at her like, what is she doing? You know, I had never heard this. None of us had heard this before. In fact, I think it shocked some of the Pentecostals who were there. And then the second one who went off in speaking in tongues was my husband. And you have to understand, we were only married a few months at this point. And here is this man I have pledged my life to, and he's sitting on the end of a chair, and obviously being called to be a preacher his whole life, which I didn't understand at that time. And his hands are moving like this, and he's speaking in what to this day sounds like Hebrew. I mean, it's just a full flowing language, and he's preaching. He wasn't just talking in tongues, he was preaching. And I was staring at him, completely distracted, had no idea quite what was happening, but it was a little scary to figure out what was going on. And he went on like that maybe for 15 minutes, okay? And everyone else was just quietly praying in tongues. And I sat there in a rocking chair, being a little bit pregnant and a little bit scared. And one of the ministers there, one of the Protestant ministers, came up and he put a hand, I was in a rocking chair, he put a hand on each of the arms of the chair, leaned forward and said, "You're having some doubt, aren't you?" I said, "I don't know if it's doubt, but it's fear." And he said, "Just relax, it's going to be fine." So what happened to me, because I am a bit of an introvert, is the next morning I was teaching, as I usually did then, in the Catholic high school here in town, St. Joseph's High School. They have a chapel there. So I went into school early, and I decided to go into that chapel, and I locked the door so nobody would come in. And I went up to the tabernacle, and I knelt there, and I said, "Lord, if anything that happened last night was real, then can I just have that now, okay?" And so just as quietly and as wonderfully as you could do, I just began to pray in tongues, and all the distractions were gone and everything else was gone. So for me, it was a day later, but it was real, and it has lasted.